China doesn't do very well under their current system in that type of inflationary environment, because the folks on the East Coast who still have jobs can still barely make it. But when you double and triple basic foodstuffs for the peasants on the inland, you're going to get social unrest, and that's what China fears more than anything else. But there's nothing they can do, because all the other Western economies are inflating their currencies pretty much on an equal basis, and all that extra money.
Well, absolutely. Look at our mainstream pro-globalist media. They tell us China is Valhalla. Steve Watson's brother, Paul Watson, was just, one of our writers, was just over in China for 2 weeks. An unmitigated hellhole in the cities he was in, homeless people everywhere, feces on the ground, riots going on daily, troops marching in the streets. And we're told China is this wondrous model of the New World Order. That shows how our media is lying to us.
Well, absolutely. I mean, China is going to suffer unrest because of this massive inflation, but they have no alternative. They have no other way to go other than to hyperinflate all currencies. Now, the Swiss currency and the Canadian currency and the Australian currency are less prone to that, so that's why you're seeing them change in relation to the value of the dollar.
That's right. Bill Still, stay there. As Bob Chapman said, he recommended both those currencies years ago. Okay, going back to Bill Still of the Money Masters, the Secret of Oz films, both available at Infowars.com. I hope you get them and get them out to everybody you know so they understand what we're facing. And the new book, No More National Debt. Now, I want to go back to the Great Depression. We'll get into the new book and solutions coming up to what really happened there. Because if you research the history of it, it's on record the big central banks maneuvered to actually crash the market and then get people on Social Security so they'd be tied into the Ponzi scheme and go along with the expansion of the domestication. And now we're headed into the next phase of getting rid of the free market, imploding America, blaming capitalism, and moving towards a total hegemonic system run by the very same private banks at a world level.
I did. Back at the occasion of Milton Friedman's 90th birthday, which a piece that ran on NPR, because Friedman researched it and found out that the cause of the Great Depression was because the newly formed Federal Reserve System, which was supposed to prevent such depressions, deliberately contracted the amount of money in circulation by a factor of 1/3, and then held that money out of circulation, and that was the cause of the Great Depression. Depression on the national level is just like a depression in your own personal level. If you don't have money in your wallet, it's a depression. It's the same thing. If they increase the amount of money in circulation, like they did through the early the last 2000 through 2008, for example, then you have boom times and house prices zoom skyward, and all they have to do is contract the currency a little bit, and the economy turns back down. And of course, they're fully prepared to financially gain from that sort of thing, and they do. They buy up assets for pennies on the dollar. This is something throughout the history of the United States they've done no less than half a dozen times, if not 10 times, time and time again, milking the economy, milking the wealth, asset stripping the American people. But, you know, fortunately, we still have the system we have in place. This system can still survive.
Well, we're going to get to that in a moment, but going back to the authors of the crimes that we're now witnessing and all this pain, this time it was different than the Great Depression, though. They first gave themselves tens of trillions of fiat, digital dollars that they hoarded and then loaned out at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, some credit card APRs, and we'll put the CNN headline up, 79.9 now. So that bailout, they admit they even restricted money more in the last 2.5 years, hoarding it for themselves as they got the country deeper in debt, so that when everything finally goes under, they're going to come in flush with cash as the saviors, like carpetbaggers with off-the-chart interest rates.
Well, it was worse than that. I mean, we found out in the congressional hearings after the 2008 debacle that J.P. Morgan and Citi were lending out 52 times the amount of money they had, not just the 10 to 12 times allowed by international banking rules, but 52 times. Freddie and Fannie were leveraged out 72 times, and Goldman Sachs was leveraged out 333 times. And then about 4 months ago, Obama got on TV and said, no, we need to just end the reserve requirement altogether. In other words, 333 times is not sufficient for these bankers. Only infinity will do. And that's the kind of system we have right now, where there's a group of people that can essentially print money in their own bank electronically, lend it out to us at interest if they want, or in this particular case, now they can print this money out and play in the derivatives market, where they can make far more profits than they can at lending us fixed mortgages for 30 years.
It makes loan sharking look like a moral operation, and these very same banking cartels, J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Citibank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they're the big six, quote, U.S. holders of the private Federal Reserve stock. You got the Bank of England and others involved, and they keep that secret very tightly held. I mean, since when do we have a private group who Congress can't even find out secrets from, running roughshod over everything? And 2 years ago, Greenspan, former Fed head, told Lair NewsHour, I'm sure you've seen the clip, Bill, that we are above the law. No branch of government can touch us. We can do whatever we want. I mean, you might as well say he's God.
Well, that's what the Bible says, that the borrower shall be servant to the lender. And there are two problems with this the national debt, the interest that's incurred. Number one, it's the interest is compounding and we have to pay it. But number two, equally important, but never talked about, is the control that interest gives people. You know, also...
We're going to talk about it when we get back. Long segment coming up. We'll get into solutions with Bill Still.
Gonna stand my ground.
We're being enslaved financially by a bunch of fraudsters publicly. For years, they wouldn't give the Congress where the bailout money went, and finally Bloomberg and others sued and got it. Trillions of dollars to foreign banks, to domestic media, payoffs to newspapers. Private banks get our money that we've got to pay interest on, and then they pay it to newspapers and MSNBC to come out and attack the Tea Party that's out saying, abolish the Fed, audit the Fed. And, of course, Ron Paul points out that, yes, abolishing the Fed won't do anything, or auditing it won't, but expose what the banks are doing that control it. So it looks like a paradox, but it's not really. Now, Bill Still is our guest. We're about to go back to him here in just a moment. I want to remind listeners that this radio broadcast is also listener-supported, if you believe the information. Plus, when you get the books, the videos, the T-shirts at Infowars.com, your purchase of the books and the videos and the ball caps spreads the word, enlightens and informs you to a higher level. And then you can make copies of my films. You can show my films, you know, at events locally in your town, or to friends you invite over for dinner. Books like Big Brother, The Orwellian Nightmare Come True by Mark Dice. Excellent book breaking down how Orwellian we've gotten, paralleling it with the book. You can get it with Jesse Ventura's 63 Documents the Government Doesn't Want You to Read. Another excellent read. And get one of my best-selling films for free, whatever film you choose, that deal at Infowars.com. Also, Jason Burmis's latest documentary that I produced, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, going through their history, their goals, their operations. It's all so important, and it's all available at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. And, of course, both films made by Bill Still, The Money Masters and the Secret of Oz, and his new book, of course, just out and just now available at Infowars.com. No more national debt. We're going to be getting into that now, into the solution area. But you got cut off by the break there, Bill. When we talk about we won't back down, we can't back down. There is no way out except by defeating these people. So to get into solutions, in a nutshell, explain the current monetary system versus what the founders established, and your well-researched alternative of government-controlled and transparent fiat for credit to empower the individual to create a level playing field versus the globalist controlled fiat that's only used for them at interest. And then the third way, the gold-silver route. I mean, and people email me and say, well, why do you have Bill Still on and then have Ron Paul on? Well, this is not a cult, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to get you thinking. I have on who I think's interesting. I have on who I think's well-researched. I have different perspectives and different views in complex, multivariate, multifaceted understandings as the lay of the land changes. Like, I've studied history. I like and tend to agree with Bill Still's model that a lot of top economists agree with and is a system the bankers really get angry about, especially with Lincoln. But I know that they're not going to go with that system at this time. So under the current system, gold and silver are going to go up. So it isn't a contradiction that I'm entertaining what he's saying, but also saying gold and silver's great, because look at silver's up 7-8 times what it was 10 years ago. Gold's up more than 400%, 4 times and growing. That's a consequence of what the globalists have done. And Bill's right. The University of Texas, the other big universities, the dictators, the banksters, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, they all hoard gold and silver. They are positioning it where in the future it could be $5,000 for gold and $200 for silver. That's a potential. And yes, I would probably, even as a gold and silver bug at that time, oppose a system that put them back in the driver's seat. But again, reality is very complex. It's not just, well, do you support Ron Paul's model or Bill Still's model? Or I'm here respecting you enough to have a wide spectrum breakdown. Okay, Bill, I want to take a few calls later in the hour, maybe hold you 5 minutes over in the next hour, or maybe even 20 if you can do it before Wayne Madsen comes back in. He's busy doing another radio interview anyways. He's down here visiting us in town with some breaking news. But the toll-free number of folks have questions for you, not long diatribes because we're almost out of time here, but simple questions that you'd like to get answered, or complex questions put in a simple way for Bill Still. 1-800-259-9231. We'd love to hear from you. We're just limited on time. 800-259-9231. Now, getting into what the monetary system is currently, the 3 different models that we've discussed, and your system, and why you think it's the best system.
Well, first of all, just let me say a couple things that you said a lot of stuff. First of all, QE2 not happening. That's a complete non-starter. QE3 will happen, absolutely. They have no other tricks in their bag. Do we want rich guys in the system? Absolutely, we want rich guys in the system. But you know, what we want is a capitalist system. What we don't have is a capitalist system. We have a monopolistic system. The fifth plank of the Communist Manifesto says centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of a national bank with state capital and an exclusive monopoly. That's what we have today. That's not what we need. What we need is money created in the public interest without public debt. It's as simple as that. There's 2 things that you have to do to make it happen. Number 1, you forbid further government borrowing. Number 2, you forbid the ability of commercial banks to lend money they don't have. We're not trying to kill banks. We're not trying to kill interest. You know, we need banks. We need people to be able to get interest to risk their capital. That's the capitalist system. But we don't have that system. We have the monopolistic capitalist system. Secondly, Obama's stimulated the economy with about $1.4 trillion. But think about it. The banks that get that money get to multiply that by a factor of 10 or 12. There's only $14 trillion in the American economy. So this $1.4 trillion, when multiplied by 10, makes another $14 trillion. In other words, they've doubled the amount of money in this system. That's for sure inflationary. We just haven't seen the full impact yet. It usually takes about 24 months to work its way through the system. Next, you keep referring to this Jefferson quote. I hate to tell you, but on chapter 32 of my book, I have a whole chapter on fake quotes. I try to clean up some of these quotes. That quote happens to be a fake.
Well, I know that's in debate, but I mean, I've got books that are over 100 years old with not just that quote, but tons of quotes by the founders. I've actually read some of the books written by the founders. That's all they talked about was the private central banks. I mean, that's what Lincoln talked about. That's what Jackson talked about.
Absolutely, but there's no verifiable source on that particular quote. Jefferson said plenty of other stuff similar to it, but not that particular quote.
Well, let's go through some of those quotes.
Well, I'd have to dig them out of the book.
Well, that's why I was at the start of the show saying I did want to go through a few quotes. Because, I mean, the founding of our country mainly dealt with the monetary systems. Jackson, it was all about the monetary system. I mean, Bill, break some of that down, because this fight we're facing has been the fight that we've always been facing in any free society if they're going to have a shot at liberty. You know, when you say, yeah, we want rich guys in free market, this is the opposite. These guys use their monopoly over currency and credit to dominate and shut down their competition.
Right. They make the power pyramid very, very steep. That's the ultimate goal of the New World Order, to have that power pyramid as steep as possible, where it's very tall and not very wide. In other words, very few people hold almost all the power at the top, and the bottom portion, the we the people portion, hold very little power at all.